Welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm here with John Cowell this morning. He's the owner and director of the Constellation Management Group. John, thanks for spending some time with me today.
No problem at all.
So let's start with a bit of context. Tell the viewers, what do you do? How long have you been doing it? Maybe some examples.
So we're a private security company. We cover a very broad spectrum of security and training in particular, across not just the UK but internationally as well. Myself and Jeff have been as partners 7 years now. My background originally came from the leisure industry, so bars, nightclubs, restaurants, things like that. I ended up falling into the security industry by accident, mainly because I wasn't happy with the provision that we were receiving as a business when we owned the bars and clubs. So I started my own business, supplying myself basically and supplying my bars and clubs. It sort of grew from there really, and that's when I met Jeff. Jeff had a more of an international side of it. We ended up in Uganda, Zimbabwe, the UAE, and the business grew from there really.
And just thinking about the global environment, terrorism, we don't hear so much about it these days. What are the major threats that your clients are facing that they need security for at the minute?
Terrorism isn't really the sort of level of threat that we get involved in. That particular side of the business, we're looking more at obviously the personal protection, not so much that and the largest threat to our clients will be kidnap and ransom,
right,
or embarrassment. So if we're looking after a particular client and that people want photographs and things like that, the last thing they want is a photograph of the client getting out of a car, that upskirt shot or something along those lines. So they're the two biggest sort of threats, I suppose, to our clients that side of the business. It's embarrassment and potentially kidnap and ransom, the kids or that sort of thing. So.
And I saw on your website when I was doing some research yesterday that you also do sporting events. Obviously, we've had one particularly high-profile sporting security breach this year with the orange powder on the snooker table. How does that change the sort of environment that you work in?
It doesn't. We work in the stadium side of things. Cambridge United is actually our favourite client, if you like, in that realm. They're brilliant to work with. The safety manager there is very knowledgeable, very skilled, and a really lovely guy. And we work very, very closely with him. Protesters, you're probably more concerned about somebody getting onto the pitch and doing a little bit of a stupid run around the pitch more so than protesters. So again, we run courses to help deal with that. We run courses in behavioural detection and things like that to try and spot these types of people, and that's something we're rolling out quite a lot at the moment. We're doing within the hotels that we work with.
That's really funny because I wrote that down. I said I haven't got a script, but it was one of the notes that I made. Behavioural detection operatives. So just fill me in on that. What does that mean?
So some of that, it's been around for a long time. It's not something that's brand new, but it's been something that's probably been brought more to the forefront courtesy of the Manchester Arena bombings and the findings. I think that the inquiry found with that and the shortfalls that sort of fell within that, and I think. My personal view is some of the shortfalls found were not necessarily all of that of the security provider, but more so of the venue operator or the promoter. But that's a whole separate element. But what it has done, it highlighted that some of the operatives missed key behavioural points from that individual. And off the back of that, one of our colleagues has been involved in writing a specific course. Level 2, solely for the delivery of that to not just security operatives, but to front of house staff, stewards, things like that, and the sort of things to look at and look for and what to spot. And we've split that down into 3 different elements, and that's just been released by QN UK on a national basis. for delivery. So we're quite proud that one of our colleagues has been involved in writing that course. We're quite proud that we're one of the first companies to be able to deliver it.
Yeah.
And we're already in the process of talking to a number of hotel groups in particular that we work with, that want to start putting that training in place. Because it'll all also fall under part of Martin's law.
Right, of course, yeah.
Which, whilst is now law, isn't in the statute books, but will be probably early next year. And that will be quite a challenge for a lot of businesses in particular.
I remember some of that behavioral detection stuff when I was in the military. We were taught how to recognize people who were a threat, from various positions, whether that was walking or in a vehicle or stuff like that. So that's clearly something that just, as you say, it's been around for quite a long time.
Yeah,
it's very important.
But it is, and we've just deployed it to an AGM for a large company. We've put them out across a couple of sporting events. We've got some ready to be deployed in the summer for probably the UK's largest sporting event this summer. So yeah, we're quite proud of that. It's something that we're really pleased with. Yeah.
Good. So I want to take you back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, because I know you said you had bars and restaurants and things like that. But let's go right back to the beginning, and that moment when you thought, you know what, I don't really want to work for anybody else. I'm going to do this myself. Can you remember, what it was that gave you that kind of spark to set up in business on your own?
Yeah, I just didn't like working for people. I didn't like being told what to do. I suppose that's always been a look. I was young when I got into the pub and nightclub game. I was only 18, literally just come out of school, finished my A levels, and I loved working within that environment. I loved working with food. I loved working with real ales and the environment, the meeting people, that sort of thing. And I was very lucky. I had great managers that I worked with who educated me, and I just got to a point where I just lost my mum from cancer, and I took a bit of time off work, went back, and I just knew that I could do this myself. And it was going through a period where a lot of the breweries were getting rid of their pubs, so it was the beer orders. Because they were being told you can't own a brewery, sell your own beer to as many pubs as you've got. So they were selling a lot of them off. So there were some great opportunities for tenancies, leaseholds, things like that. So I bought my first sort of tenancy, which was a tiny little pub that focused on real ales and, bar food. And didn't do particularly well in that one. It was a great learning curve. But yeah, wasn't the success that I'd hoped for. So I had to sort of take a bit of a step back from that one. But it didn't deter me. No. So I had another go, and I bought another one with the help of my dad, who financially supported me on that. Paid him his money back, so we did it as a loan. Got him money back, and yeah, it did very well. We transformed that place from a sort of $4,000 a week pub, if you like, to a 15 grand a week food and bar.
Nice.
In a town centre, and had a lot of fun doing it. And yeah, it just grew from there. So we opened a few more, and then just sort of sat back for a little while. And then when we found out my wife was having a baby, probably back in 2014 now, I suppose, I just realised that it was time to call it a day. I didn't really want to still be working till 6 o'clock in the morning in a nightclub and then coming home.
Gig, isn't it? Hospitality.
Yeah. And the security company was doing okay that we'd set up. And by selling that element of the business, it meant I could invest the money into the security company, which we did. And we probably had two years of it being quite tough of growing that. And we landed ourselves an amazing contract in Mali, in Africa.
Right.
Looking after a British company who were flying UAVs for the United Nations. And we had a group of guys that were based out in Timbuktu in Mali. Jeff went out and set the contract up. We were there for sort of 3-4 years, and it was phenomenal. And that was a sort of turning point. And yeah, we've tried our hand at a couple of things. They've not always worked. We've gone backwards again, sort of reset ourselves. We've had some epic failings. But I think the key to that is then learning from those failings and making sure we don't make those mistakes again. And I think we've done that.
I think that's a great lesson for anybody starting in business, or anybody who's in the first sort of couple of years. You had a small pub and it didn't work out the way you thought. And, when we talk about resilience and getting up when you've been knocked back a bit, that's a great example of saying, well, actually that didn't work, but we learned a lot. We're going to do it again, and we're going to do it properly this time.
I mean, I did. And I am the sort of character that you can keep knocking me down. It's not going to deter me, because I know what I want to achieve out of it. Don't get me wrong. There's been times where I've been sat there and, you just kind of think to yourself, why am I doing this?
Yes.
You're the one that's having the sleepless nights because you're waiting for somebody to pay your bills, but you've got your payroll to run. And
yes,
you're the one that's then sitting there thinking, well, I've got all these families that are dependent on me, all these people that are dependent on me.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? And, somehow we've always found a solution. Sometimes I don't know how we've done it, but we've done it. And then in 2019, Jeff and I decided we wanted to buy something a little bit different in the UK. We looked at a small events company, which was CN Security. And the chap that owned it, Carrie, really nice guy, spent a lot of his time touring with rock bands and things like that around the world. So he hadn't really got time to focus on this events-based business. And it worked for us because it was spring and summer led. And then it just needed a little bit of work through the winter. So we knew what we could do, sort of try and do with it.
Yeah.
So we bought that completed in September 2019. January 2020, obviously things started changing quite dramatically. And by the beginning of March, obviously our final event had decided that they weren't going to be operating through the summer. And we just bought this business that now had no business.
Real challenge.
But the saving grace to that was we'd already been in talks with Tesco's in regarding some training and delivering training to all their security staff throughout nationally, up and down the country. And we were writing what we called the TAG course, the Tesco Advanced Guarding course. The Tesco's were really keen to roll out. So we'd already gone through the onboarding process with Tesco's. And then, of course, Boris decided to lock us all down and lock us all up for what should have been a couple of weeks. And Tesco's contacted us and said, look, our current providers for security are at capacity. They've got the guys in the stores, they're at capacity. What we haven't got, or what we're missing, is potentially some crowd control in the car parks and into the stores. Is this something you can help with? And I thought, well, we've got quite a few guys that are going to be sitting around not doing a lot at the minute. So yeah, why not? And they said, well, can we just start off? We've got about 20 stores in London that we think are going to be high profile. Could we do that? And any chance you could start tomorrow? Okay. Love a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think we managed to get some of them done for the following day, the rest the following day. And then that escalated. And it escalated further from the sort of 20, 30 stores in London to, I think it was 290 large format stores nationally and 650 convenience stores nationally.
Wow.
And we had everything from a single sort of crowd control operative on the express stores up to, I think I had one store in London that had 11 staff on to manage the control and so on. And this went on and on and on. And in that period of time, we'd also come across, there was a friend of mine who had a security company in London doing hotels. And he'd overstretched himself in investment into another business and he'd become insolvent. I contacted the administrator and said, look, I get, all these hotels are locked down at the minute, but what are the contracts like? And he said, the contracts are quite good. They're quite robust. We'll accept an offer on the contracts. And I said, well, what are you looking for? He said, look, it's a bit of a punt, so give us £1,000. So we said, do you know what? For £1,000, we'll give you that. You know, it was going to cost us more because they've still got an office there. They've got staff within the office. And I think in total, it probably with the overheads, it cost us about £40,000.
Yeah.
And that business is now doing 400,000 a month.
Outrageous, brilliant business.
So
brilliant entrepreneurship.
but luck, absolute pure luck.
You make it, don't you?
To an extent. I mean, there was about 20 hotels, I think it was, in the contracts, and we're now up to 46. So we've taken it from what its basis was, and through reputation, we've grown that. We've grown that quite well, and we're really proud of that.
So it
was the same with the Tesco side of stuff. We progressed that on from not just delivering the crowd control, that we now have a permanent contract with Tesco's looking after about 150 of their stores. So on an ongoing basis, which has been challenging.
And what I'm seeing there is, serial entrepreneurship, deal making, looking out for opportunities and things like that. For other people who are starting in business, John, I mean, is there a few lessons that you've learned along the way that you just think, right, these are the real key things that have helped me to get to where I've got to today?
I think the biggest key thing that's helped me get to certainly where we are in the last sort of 10, 12 years is, having my best friend as a business partner as well, which doesn't always work.
Yeah.
We've never fell out. We see things from totally opposite ends. We come from totally different backgrounds.
Yeah.
But we bounce ideas off each other, and often he'll see something that I can't and whatnot. The one thing we've always been good at is listening to people, but not necessarily taking that on board.
Yeah.
We can be a bit bullish sometimes, but I think the best advice I'd give is just keep going. Don't, if you're determined to be self-employed and work for yourself and grow your business, there's only one person that can do that. That's you.
And unless you've
got, and don't get me wrong, and this is probably going to sound a little bit, you've got people that have got that built into them. It's like a natural instinct. You've got people that have to work at it, and you've got people that it will never suit. Never going to fit their mindset or the way they work. And you've got to know in yourself if you are that person. And just don't ever let anybody stop you from doing it. We've had plenty try. We've fallen down. We've had to put businesses into administration because they failed.
Yeah.
But it's and that I think is part and parcel. Don't allow people to make you feel like that's a dirty way of doing things. If you're going to run businesses properly and you recognize that they are not working, you've got to take those tough decisions, and they are tough decisions. And they're heartbreaking at times, but don't let it break you.
And all these businesses and all these people that must have been on your payroll over the time, and they're looking to you for leadership in the business. What's your leadership style, John? How do you approach that? Motivating and inspiring that group of people.
I think Jeff and I work on a basis where you don't work for us, you work with us.
Right.
The guys will see us in the office, the team in the office in particular. It's slightly different now because our employee base has grown so dramatically. We've got over 800 employees now.
Yeah.
And I think that's an element I struggled with from it being a small business where I knew everybody and I would go and work with anybody. It's very different now because I can't do that. And I struggle with a little bit myself. But we motivate the team in the office by being available.
Yeah.
Being pragmatic, working with them, and showing them that we support them. And I think that's a massive key element, is that the team need to know that we've got their back.
Yes. Yeah.
And we've had some great successes within our team who have moved on to bigger and better things. And I think that's another element, is help grow those individuals, help build them into being those right sort of people that actually they can go off and do the next stage, because the next stage isn't there with us. Let them go and do it. And we've had some incredible successes on that. we've had, we've supported people through mental health issues, and we've done phenomenal amounts of work with them on things like that. It's just being there for your team and knowing that you'll look after them.
Yeah. And if you're a leader that creates other leaders, then there's no finer role than that.
Absolutely. And we like to promote from within.
Yeah.
We like to identify people and work with them. We have an in-house training team, so that makes life a bit easier for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, we like to focus on that and help build from within. And we've got some phenomenal people work for us. We're so lucky. We've got a wicked team. They really are. So many different characters. It's good fun.
So you must have then also developed an eye for recruiting the right people, because building a great team around you is what good business owners do. Somebody said to me the other day, I recruit the people and train the skill. So they're always looking for people with the right attitude. What's your kind of approach to, picking new team members?
We've gone down that route now. So our COO, really, really, really good guy. Came from a corporate background, knew very, very little about security, but he got the skill set to manage a team really, really well.
Right.
Everything else we can teach them.
Yeah.
Anything relating to security or those sort of things we can teach him. He needed that personality, and that's worked phenomenally. On the flip side, though, you bring in somebody who we need to, as a full-time recruiter, they need that skill set. So again, it's that mixture, isn't it? It's having the balance of the right personality. And look, Jeff and I are quite difficult personalities to work with, I suppose, as well, because we're quite loud. We've been together as business partners for such a long time now. We can you can answer each other's questions, but we are quite big characters.
Who's the good cop and who's the bad cop?
I'm always good cop. I'm always good cop. But it works for us. And we're just, and again, we're such good mates as well. And I think that's what makes it fun. I think somebody asked us the question the other day, if we sold the business, for example, and one stayed with the other, and I said, I wouldn't do this without him.
Yeah.
And I think he'd be the same. I think we've done it together for so long now. It wouldn't be right to, doing it the way around.
Yeah. Interesting. So looking forwards now, we've had a good look back at all the challenges that you've faced and what you've done and what your style is in that position in the business. Looking forwards, what's the future for your company?
The future is to continue growing. We want to grow through a combination of natural growth and acquisition. And we are actively looking for either, more security companies, certainly manpower-driven security companies, or training businesses. Yeah. In particular, that we want to acquire and grow. And we want to probably focus on that for 2 or 3 years, get ourselves to a point where we're happy with where it is, keep it nice and stable, and then we'd probably look at an exit strategy from that. And I think, going back to your question earlier about, somebody starting out in business, I think one of the biggest things I've learned from that is to have an exit strategy.
Yeah.
I think you've got
end in mind.
You've got to have a goal and a point. And it doesn't mean you have to have a fixed point and say, right, in 5 years I'm going to. I think you've got to have a point where you go, that's my cutoff and that's where I want to get to, and then I'll be happy to exit and exit, at the top, hopefully.
Yeah. That's good. Any key obstacles to achieving that growth that you can see? Anything that kind of stands in your way? You've been pretty successful so far at doing what it takes to grow the business.
The biggest issue we find is funding. So everything we've done so far, we've self-funded. We have no borrowing.
Right.
We utilize an invoice discounting company because some of our clients are 60 days and we need to utilize that. But they hold that based on the invoice value. So it's not technically borrowing. And I think banks, certainly high street banks and the banks you have to use on a day-to-day basis, are still absolutely terrified of supporting them small to medium businesses.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they'll throw 25 grand at you in terms of an overdraft facility or anything unsecured, but they won't look at anything much more than that. Really, they seem terrified of that fact. I think it's going to need a funder or a lender to come along and look at some of these entrepreneurs who really, okay, fly by the seat of their pants sometimes, but have massive success on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just not there. And I think that's been our biggest struggle, is being able to successfully fund some of these acquisitions. Now again, some of them we've done ourselves. But yeah, I think that would be the toughest part. I think, the support you get from banks, we're quite lucky. We've got a good business manager, but she can often be difficult to get hold of. And her hands are tied. There's only so much she can do to help you. It's great having a phone call saying, wow, we've seen how well you've done this quarter, and congratulations. Well, that's brilliant. But I also think the only other thing that lets businesses down, entrepreneurs down, is the government are missing a trick on corporation tax.
Yeah.
By pushing that corporation tax now to 25%, you're going to push a number of businesses, offshore, I think, or they'll be based elsewhere. I think if you want to encourage people to have their own businesses and grow their own businesses in particular, those people that own those businesses need to have a little bit out of it, I think.
Yeah. Two good points there. And what about John? How's John going to have to grow in the next few years to see that exit strategy into reality?
Where do you go with that? I don't know, really. I don't know. I take every day as it gets thrown at me, and I don't know. I learn every day. Something new comes along. I learn something new. You meet lots of new people, and I think as long as that continues, then I'll be happy with that. We've learned a lot as our business has grown from sort of £600,000 a year turnover to 12 million. We've learned a lot in terms of having to grow up within the business.
Yeah.
And I think that growing up process will continue. Listening to advice from people, but I think that for me is, probably about it.
Yeah, having an open mind, realizing that everybody's got blind spots.
We recognize our strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And we point them out to each other quite regularly as well. So
it sounds like a good board meeting.
They can, yes, yeah. It can often be a fun one. Depends on how much wine's involved at the time.
Sounds great. So, I mean, just to finish off, John, I know you're not the sort of company that's got lots of ongoing activities and events, but is there anything you just want to share with the viewers to finish us off about the company, or the lessons that you've learned, or what's coming up for you?
I don't know, really. I think lessons that learned, there's probably so many to even go into, but all I would say is learn from them. Take advice, enjoy it. The moment the fun goes out of it, call it a day. It's you've got to want to get up in the morning and go and enjoy doing what you're doing. And I do. Every day is different. In terms of the business, we will continue growth. If there is businesses out there that are looking to exit themselves and want to have conversations in relation to mergers, acquisitions, those sort of things, we are absolutely more than open to having conversations with people.
Right.
If people are looking for the sort of services that we provide, we're very bespoke, we're very approachable. And again, we look after the people that look after us. So that's probably about it for us. We've just continue having fun, continue enjoying ourselves, having our good days and bad days, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah. Great lessons, John. Great insight into what it takes to be a serial entrepreneur. Great lessons about, what you've learned along the way. Great advice for anyone who's starting a business or in the early years of business. And, I could spend all afternoon exploring that with you, but unfortunately time presses us. So let me just say again, thank you very much indeed for taking some time out to talk to me today on the Business Spotlight.
Much appreciated, and thanks for inviting me.
Great.